He's been through, I don't know, he's been through a lot of that stuff. And most of it is punitive because
Welcome to More Than Inmate's Girlfriend. I'm your host, Jay, and we are on to part 2 of Svetlana's episode. If you are not following us on social media, then you haven't seen the little tidbits I've been leaving. But this is a big episode on how he ended up where he ended up through the eyes of his loved one. So she's heard the stories and she now gets to tell us those stories without risking him getting in trouble by interviewing directly. It's shattering, for lack of a better word. It details exactly how someone can end up where he is. And I think mental health is a big aspect of this story and the lack thereof of treatment available that leads people to where they end up. So, super interesting episode. And Svetlana is really able to go into detail about his story and what happened. And it's really, really sad. And I think in order to humanize the incarcerated population, we have to learn from them and understand their circumstance, because a lot of us did not grow up that way. And although we can probably all say we've had traumas, there are definitely different levels of trauma that lead us down different paths. As usual, if you are enjoying the show, please like and follow and share. You can hit that little plus button on the top of your Spotify or your Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, and that shows us that someone cares and someone's listening, and I know you are, so please hit the follow button and it will tell you when I am releasing a new episode. Now, I know that most of you know that it's every Thursday, but sometimes we forget and life is busy and you miss an episode. You wouldn't want to do that, so hit that plus button. You can also follow us on social media. If you have been following us on social media and you haven't checked in a while, especially on Instagram, if you could go and double check for me. So go to that podcast _PrisonGF and make sure you are following us. Logistically, there's been some changes and we had to reset the page. So a lot of you that were following us are no longer following us. So if you could go and double check that, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. You can also check us out on TikTok at More Than Inmates GF or on Facebook, More Than Inmates Girlfriend. We appreciate the support. I would also encourage those that haven't to check out penpals.buzz. I recently did an interview on their podcast, which is easily my favorite podcast other than mine, but obviously mine's biased. I love Steve. I think he's hilarious. He has a history in radio, which is so obvious because he's so much better at this than I am. He's so funny, so entertaining, and he actually interviews people that are on his website, penpals.buzz, so on his pen pal website. So you get to learn about the people that are being posted and looking for friends, which I think is genius in terms of offerings for people. What better way to be able to speak to someone than through a podcast and give someone the opportunity to learn about you before they reach out to you and speak to you? Like, it's just genius, Steve. Like, Big Steve is genius. So I highly recommend you check out that podcast if you haven't already. And he interviews me, and that was really fun. It was really lighthearted and fun to get into a few conversations and topics that he was curious about, which I think a lot of people might be. So please check it out. Please listen to it. I loved every minute of that interview. When you're in the industry and you start working with different people who are connected in the community, you meet good people, you meet bad people, you meet ugly people, and everybody kind of knows each other. It's kind of cool, but at the same time, you're building those relationships and networking, right? So Big Steve is one of the few that I've met that's just been really great from the get-go. Really helpful, just super nice human. You know, when you meet a good human, he is a good human and he makes me want to support him in every aspect because he's doing it for all the right reasons, as am I. So we connect, I think, naturally. So definitely check that out, the Pen Pals Prison podcast, and check out the website penpals.buzz if you have any friends that are looking for someone to talk to. Check it out. Don't forget to sign up for a gift catalog. We're still giving them out free. And you can send one to your loved one or your loved one's friends by signing them up at morethaninmatesgirlfriend.com. The website is in the show notes. And then you just click send a catalog and it's free. I know Mother's Day is coming up, so there's a lot of people inquiring right now. So I think that's it. We've got some really interesting episodes coming up. I'm a little bit scared to release the next one. I'll give you a little sneak peek of that. I'm very, very scared. And I'm wondering if you know why. And I will leave it at that. Enjoy your week, guys. I hope you like part 2 of Svetlana's episode. And I will connect with you on socials. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, I never talked about our journey. It's definitely not because I'm embarrassed about being with him.
Yeah.
Everybody in my life has been more than supportive. Well, my family has passed away, but just people in my life, especially those in law enforcement, think that he shouldn't be in prison and all that kind of stuff. So I've never had a single hater, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's more in respect to the victim's family. We didn't want to put anything out there that wasn't okay with them. We didn't want to downplay that there's a person that passed away.
Right.
So that's where we waited to make sure that we did address that. And yeah, it's been several years, and finally now we felt like, okay, now we can talk about it. He was born in New Britain, Connecticut. Like I said, he was born with that birth defect,
Yep.
so he has no left arm, hence he goes by the nickname Nub. That's, yeah, people know him by that one. When he was in Oregon, it was New York, because he's very much into fashion. He's a fashion guy, so he stepped on the yard and there was a reverend that said, hey, look, that guy looks like a New York. So he's got both nicknames. He'll go between, but Nub is the popular one. And he also is biracial, which in the 70s was not fun. His mom was a teenager when she gave birth to him. His dad, from what we know, is black. We don't know more about it. His mom is white, Italian. But he went through a lot of racial issues since childhood. He has bipolar, which he didn't know about. He just always felt like something's not right, like something's wrong with me. Why am I going faster than everybody else? My mind's going faster sometimes. And sometimes he could be going for days without sleeping and then crash, I don't know, fall into a garbage can and just crash, then wake up and keep going. He just felt like something was, and he couldn't focus in school. And at the same time, he also lived in, as he calls it, the project, Section 8 housing, very low income community. So this is not a place where there was testing or anything else. He said he tried to mention that something was off, and you get who the F cares, basically.
Yeah.
He had a lot of abuse at home. He's had 3 stepfathers. His last stepfather was very abusive. Eventually, his grandmother, and I say his grandmother, she's not biologically his grandmother. She's his mom's friend, a little bit older than his mom, but she was very close to him, and a very bossy Italian person.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me one time she saw all the bruises and bleeding and all that on him. So she went to take him at home, and they agreed. She brought him in, but she's in Section 8 housing as well, and you're not allowed to have visitors overnight.
Yeah.
So he was saying, like, what kind of government is that where you allow a senior to take me, but I can't stay there? Where am I supposed to stay? So since he was 3 years old, basically, he said he had nowhere to live, and he had to sneak out of her window at night so she doesn't lose her housing. And that led to him being on the street. So around age 9, when he started to break into cars to sleep somewhere. And in Connecticut is cold. I've been there. So winter, yeah. He said you start sitting in a cardboard box, but then police pick you up. You go to jail. They bring you right back to where you started.
Yeah.
Nobody actually asked why a 9-year-old is in a box. So he was in and out of jail for that as a start. And then he broke into cars to sleep in. And then he started to get pulled out for that. And he was now heading into juvenile facilities because he was breaking into cars. He didn't take anything from them, but he just wanted somewhere to be. But then Now, okay, you're going in and out of juvenile. Now I can't break into cars. All right. So you end up hooking with the wrong people because somebody tells you, guess what, you can stay here. And you, as a kid, you don't really know, but you figure out very fast that it's street life, it's gang life. You're going to join with groups that maybe you might not want to, but it's too late. And it's also not a lot of choices. So he was, I think, in middle school when he said you have to get a gun because you walk to school and you have people shooting at you kind of thing. Did he ever want to shoot a gun? No, but it became a normal thing that you're always afraid that you're going to need it. He started his criminal career, I'm going to call it that, at age 9. He was in and out of various facilities. He was in and out of juvenile, and pretty much all of them were solitary confinement. So after many rounds of different Hartford correctional institutions, so juvenile facilities, they sent him to what's called Long Lane School. Now, I've never been there. It's been now closed, but it was supposed to be a school, but it's a juvenile facility kind of school. Okay. So basically, one person per room. The bathroom is on the outside of the room. You have to ask the guard to use the bathroom, and they may tell you, okay, I need you to give me a blowjob if you want to do that. So he told me he's been physically and sexually molested more than once until he learned that the only way that doesn't happen is you physically show that person you're stronger than them. You have to overpower them. So he started to get into fights. And he was labeled as a behavioral kid, but at the same time, like he said, well, that is the only way I don't get assaulted in that way. And I understand there's been a lot of stuff now written about Kimberly West wing of Long Lane School. It's been shut down. Okay. There were some counselors that spoke about it, what really happened in there. But he did the time in there. Had a lot of girls, they told him as a dangerous behavioral child. So they put him with the women. The Kimberly West wing was the girls' wing. They figured he's safe with women because he would never harm a female. So he took all the cooking classes, the sewing classes, and he loved all that anyway. He loved fashion and food, but it was a very difficult time. And when he got out of there, his journey continues because he has no schooling. I think he was about 16 when he finally got out, and he got picked up for the next thing. And at that point, to Hartford Correctional, where he escaped.
Oh, wow.
And now, so he's got an escape charge. And then when he got picked up, he went into a northern facility. Like I said, he could tell that story better because it's a long list and I don't want to get it wrong. But he ended up going to northern Connecticut, has the youth facility, NYA. They skipped when they put him right in northern, which was level 5 for meth.
Wow.
So northern is something he worked on with Yale to close. But before that, what it was done as is extremely punitive facility. It mostly housed death row or really difficult prisoners. Something called unmanageable, level 4, level 5, mostly black, sometimes brown, very racial in there. So northern people can Google it and people speak out about it, but it was unknown then. They kept it pretty private. 4-pointing kids and guys was normal. So they got you spread apart, 4-pointed, so each arm on different side of the wall, your legs and all that kind of stuff. They have you 4-pointed against the wall. The guards will come in, throw the food on the floor, which you are shackled to the wall. You can't get. Wow. There's also no way for you to use the bathroom, so you've got feces, urine all over stuff, and you're in that position 24 hours, 72 hours, sometimes a week. So it was horrible, and this is where he said he learned to read and write for the first time.
Wow.
And he started to write to anybody he could, senators, politicians, anyone he can reach. And again, that began a whole lot of retaliation because DOC likes to keep corruption private. So to get him to stop writing, they moved him to death row. So he'd have no communication with anybody. And he was on death row for a while. And Northern actually did close. United Nations and Yale did come in and they did close it. They did label it as torture. But meanwhile, people still spent time in there. So in total, it was difficult. But he got out of Northern, and you're going from 9 years of pure torture and solitary right onto the street, right there and then. Was not okay. His mind was everywhere.
Yeah.
He was not doing well, and he didn't know where he was coming or going. He was just angry at the world, basically. And why does people do that? Why does that happen? So 4 months later, after he left Northern, he caught his current case. It was, like he says, he does blame himself for being in there. When it comes to remorse, we did resist talking about his story for a long time because he feels really bad about the fact that somebody's life was lost, somebody he considered a friend.
Yeah.
But like he said, he was in a car, and all of a sudden he said, I heard somebody scream, there's a gun, and shooting started. Now, I can only quote the article about the shooting. They say that he was the driver. No weapons were linked to him. No weapons were fired from him. He didn't have any weapons.
Yeah.
According to police reports, he was only charged as the driver, but he was older than the other of the 5 guys, so he got the most time.
Oh.
And, of course, they also go through your PSI, pre-sentencing investigation. He has a life of crime. He was on the street for that long. So he got a lot of time. He was older, and all his points added up, and the judge gave him the most time. And at that time, like you said, he was still navigating the fact that Connecticut had a death penalty. So he could have got a death penalty.
What?
I remember I asked him, when you got sentenced to that kind of time and you knew you're going to be in prison for the rest of your life, what did you feel? And he said, I started laughing. Like, okay, you finally got me. And I do think that he needed to go to prison, mostly because I think it saved his life. I think he would have died on the street. The way his bipolar was going, everything he's been through, I think he would have died on the street.
Yeah.
So I think it saved him. Not that prison rehabilitates. They definitely don't do that.
Yeah.
But I think it saved his life from being out there.
Right.
And he will agree to that. So I do agree with him being in prison. I don't agree with the sentence time.
I agree with that.
I will stand on that hill.
Yeah, same. I think we have similar thought processes on that too, because my husband will agree as well that prison probably saved his life, and that the life sentence he was handed down was what he needed to receive to be able to grow and be able to see the other side. He thinks that if he would have gotten a 10-year sentence or a 15-year sentence, he would have stayed on the criminal path, for lack of a better word. But him as well, during his sentencing, he laughed. I'm like, what did you do when they told you you're sentenced to die in prison? And he was like, I laughed. I didn't even take it seriously. Because they're so into the gang life. They're so into the streets and whatever. They don't realize. And I think it takes a long time and a lot of maturity. And in your husband's case, probably a lot of medication because he needed it.
Didn't need that. And I could lead into what led him to end up in Oregon to begin with.
Yes, please.
So he learned to read and write, and he learned that if you don't advocate for yourself, nobody else will. And prisoners are really good at learning the law. They're amazing at it. He's done so much of my work contracts that I needed to, better than I could, better than most. They have some of the most talented, smartest people in there.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So anyway, he got into the law very early on. He did do a lot of lawsuits. Like I said, he did piss off DOC a lot. But I mean, nothing they didn't deserve. So in Northern, there were 2 doctors, Dr. Mark Frayne and Dr. Richard Gagne, and they were the psychologists. So what they would do is they would play with your mental health score. It depended where they want to place you, because the restricted housing is worth more money. They were getting billed more from taxpayers. So they would make your mental health score higher, and then they would make it lower when they didn't want to give you medication. So they would play with it all the time. And they also played with it so they can give you medication they just wanted you to try without you knowing it.
Right.
So after the closure of Northern and all that stuff, and he was in Corrigan facility, and this was just before 2012, sometime around 2012, they played with his score. And how do I quote that article that came out? He was in a one-on-one mental health session with a mental health worker, counselor, whatever you call it.
Uh-huh.
And this is when the guards opened the door and a bunch of people ran in and a fight started. It was different gangs all at once. It was huge. And so the worker herself, she said this was the most bloodiest thing she's ever seen. And she spent a lot of time working for DOC. She had her own mental breakdown after that. She left the DOC and never came back to it. It was bad. And right before that, Dr. Gagne but gave him medication that was some kind of psychiatric medication, had nothing to do with bipolar because he's never been diagnosed yet. So whatever medication he had, we don't know to this date, but they gave him something and he had a full breakdown. So yeah, this fight is going on while he doesn't know who he is, where he is. He ended up assaulting a deputy warden. I don't know. I go between the word stab and assaulted because different newspaper articles will quote it differently.
Okay.
There was no permanent damage or something like that. Nobody passed away, nothing like that. He was, of course, taken to court. He was charged. The state brought in a lot of evidence. This was on video footage. And he got a public defender. And like I said, he's the first one I actually ended up speaking to originally. Ted was awesome, but he couldn't really defend him too much. Like, it's on video footage. But yeah, he did assault the person. However, he wanted him to be seen by a psychiatrist because he said he was not even blinking for days. He just sat there. And if you know Kenyan, he doesn't stop talking. He doesn't stop moving. So that's not normal. Kenyan does not trust authorities, especially medical authorities, because, well, reasons. And so he said, okay, I want you to see Dr. Meisler. He's a Yale psychiatrist. He's the one the state uses for themselves.
Okay.
And he was going, no way, I'm not going. And then finally he said, I'll go if you go with me. So there's his lawyer trying to say, I can't come with you. I can't come hold your hand. You're 40 years old. I can't do it. There's HIPAA violations and all that stuff. In the end, Ted ended up coming in with him. And so finally he said, okay, you can go. Anyway, Dr. Meisler was amazing. And he did diagnose him with a lot of things, complex PTSD, dissociative rage disorder, based on all the stuff that was happening for him. But he did diagnose him with bipolar. So this is the first time. He turned 41 when he got diagnosed with bipolar. And when he said the word bipolar, the world kind of made sense. He said the blues were bluer, the sky was clear, the world made sense. Because he was always saying, what's wrong with me? And finally somebody gave him an answer. So he diagnosed him. He told him, okay, you need to be on medication, which they prescribed for him. And he felt normal. Everything was slowed down. Things made sense. Like, it was good. Dr. Meisler did testify that he's not responsible for what happened due to his mental state.
Okay.
They're supposed to only add 2 years for possession of a weapon. They did add all 12 in the end.
Wow.
And for the stabbing, 2 for the weapon. But at the same time, I think, I don't care. As long as you tell me what's wrong with me, I don't care. Because I'm a lifer. I don't care. Keep adding the time. I want to know.
Right.
But he says he's got this peace. But of course, the warden was in there. And there's several officials that were in there. And they did state that if you ever come back, we're going to end your life. So it was considered to be not safe for him to return to that facility.
Yeah.
And in total, the DOC decides he's not manageable. He's a violent offender. And yeah, they shipped him out of state. So he said, I was on the plane. Next thing I know, I'm coming down, I'm seeing cows, and now I'm in Oregon. It's like, okay, I don't know this. But that is how he ended up in Oregon. And it was 2018. But
wow.
Like he said, at that time, he had no idea you could be out of state like that, an interstate compact, and people assume you have to have charges if you're in another state.
Yeah.
So, but he said coming to Oregon was the best thing that ever happened to him.
Did they take care of his mental health in Oregon?
They did. It took a bit of a fight.
Okay.
Because DOC always does take a little bit of a fight. But they did follow the regimen that Dr. Meisler mentioned. He was put on bipolar medication, and he has not had a single violent episode in his life since, and it's been over 13 years. So that changed him. And it was just, like you said, he was a different person. And Oregon has all these organizations, clubs. Kenyon's always into learning.
Okay.
But they had so many programs, and their tablets had programs. And even when I met him, he wouldn't let me ever send money. Not that I offered, but he was really against that.
Yeah.
But he loved books. So I sent him books.
So why would they bring him back to Connecticut if it was deemed dangerous for him to be there because of the situation?
Well, in Oregon, he got involved with OJRC, Oregon Justice Resource Center. It's a nonprofit, and they do a lot of advocacy for prisoners.
Okay.
And two things. One was he was in a lot of testimonies for abuse of other prisoners. They did not like that. They wanted to get rid of him. But the other thing was health issues. Like with what happened in Connecticut, he had issues with L4 and L5, his spine. They needed to do his surgery. So Oregon did do his neck, but they never finished the L4 and L5. So those are medical procedures that are expensive. And then he started to feel this all-day diarrhea, vomiting.
Okay.
And he passed out in his cell. They sent him to an outside hospital, and they gave him milk of magnesia for constipation. So he knew that's not it. And at that point, I was in his life already. We started to really push to find out, okay, what's going on with you? And he requested his medical records and found out that it's a gallbladder. So at that point, he had gallstones, and they could be removed, but you have to push for the surgery. But with Oregon, when they transfer you from facility to facility, you have to start the medical process from zero.
Okay.
You see your provider for the first time, they do all the blood work. So they just kept transferring back and forth because they got out of that. But in this case, they knew he was already, OJRC had attorneys, he was going to court. And so it was a lot easier to just send him back rather than deal with somebody. They realized, because all they knew is he's a dangerous person. What they assumed dangerous meant violent.
Okay.
But he wasn't violent. Then they realized what Connecticut meant dangerous is that he knows the right and he will make you accountable. Like, he'll hold you to what you're being paid for, basically. No more, no less. Like he said, it's not a Hilton, but I know you have to provide me that surgery. And by then they said, okay, his gallbladder was bad enough where it's no longer gallstones. You have to remove the entire gallbladder or he's not going to be living. And he's having all day diarrhea and vomiting. And you can no longer say it's constipation.
Right.
So basically he had to have surgery or else, and they knew legally he's going to push it. So it was very easy to send him back. But like I said, he was involved in a lot of advocacy. Oregon also has a lot of clubs. That's one good thing that they created. People there have things to do.
Yeah.
They have something. Even if you're a lifer, you have a purpose.
Yeah.
So he joined a bunch of clubs. There's Toastmasters. There's a lot of different ones.
Yeah.
There's Lifers Club, but the one he loved the most was Ukur Sasa Club. It was an African-American culture club.
Okay.
So the guys did a lot of things. They would grow out their hair and donate it for people with cancer to make wigs.
Wow.
They did Coats for Kids. That was his program. He was the point person on this one. They did the fundraisers where they sell certain things to the public, and the money is for kids that need winter coats. There was school supplies, things like that. They did a lot for the community. So you get the kids that come in and give these guys hugs and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, melt my heart. I think that's exactly what's needed. It's for people who are incarcerated, especially of violent crimes and stuff, like when they were young and just have been through the system, to be able to give back to the community. I think it's so important for both sides of the coin. It's important for the community to interact with people that are incarcerated, and it's important for the people that are incarcerated to interact with the community. That's the only way where real healing happens. That is so nice.
Yeah, it is. And as much as DOC didn't like it, it also brought positive publicity and money, because these guys are raising money.
Yeah.
The money, just keep, I think, half of it. And they get the credit for what the community receives, money that none of these guys get to keep, and they're doing all these things. So it was amazing in that way. He also started writing programs and teaching classes. So eventually he ended up doing Penitentiary Law 101, where he went to college. He taught law class, and the students never knew that this is a guy with a murder charge until the end of the semester. And it's that shock that when the doors close, because Oregon, they wear blues, like it's blue jeans, blue sweater kind of thing, or black sweater. So they thought this is a professor that they liked, but they liked it. And imagine that at the end of your semester, you find out, by the way, I'm in prison and I'm charged with murder. So you realize that they're not these dumb, horrible people.
Yeah, exactly.
They're educated. They're kind. They change a lot of people. And I think a lot of people at that time switched from prosecution to defense law. You get to know people.
Exactly.
It brings that human aspect to them.
Yeah.
And so in between teaching those classes, the guys also got to meet Doc. That's his nickname, Charles Williams, Doc. And people would bring you their legal cases.
Yeah.
And he's a legal guy, so he loved that. And so one of the guys brings him this case and says, look, this guy's 94 years old, and he's saying he's innocent. And Doc was a war veteran. He was in the Vietnam War. I mean, this guy's been through a lot. And he was reading his case going, oh, my gosh, he actually is innocent. Basically, just to make it short, he should not be in prison, but they're holding him there. And he's been trying to write to district attorneys, to the courts. Nobody's paying attention. Some of them recognize that maybe something's off with this case, but didn't care enough to look further. So Doc was at that time in the infirmary. He had, I think, cancer. I think it was kidneys. I can't remember exactly, but he was dying. And he said his one wish is not to die inside those prison walls. He wanted to make it outside. Even he said, if I die on the steps, I'm okay with it. Just not inside here. So the guys were working overtime to try to get him out. And that's when I think the rest of them recognized I'm not just a girlfriend in his life, because they started sending me the information, and I contacted the VAs and all that kind of stuff. And so we did find a vet place that would take him. They need 24-hour notice. They would provide him with a room, with all the care, everything else. We had to push the DOC. We had to push the DAs, and it went through a lot of things. And my husband had his file in his cell, which normally in Connecticut was allowed. That's what he knew. He didn't know that Oregon doesn't allow that. So they sent him to the hole, which he went to what's called IMU. This is intensive management unit. So it's beyond segregation. It's intensive segregation. You're 24/7 in this vacuum sealed cell with nothing. Basically, that was retaliation. So he was in IMU, and I had to tell him eventually on the phone that Doc is going to that hospital on January 1st. He's going to get out. And then I had to tell him that Doc passed away January 31st.
Oh, this story broke my heart.
And, it broke a lot of hearts. I cried. And I cried not knowing how to tell him. How do you tell the person you love that it's something they worked on, they're passionate about, and they're now in segregation for? It's going to be for nothing kind of thing. And I didn't know how to tell him when he called, and to get very minimum communication in there. So that 5 minutes, that's the first thing I said, and I know, I felt it. And I think that broke him. So after that, he decided to go further, and he created a nonprofit, which he went back and forth deciding on the name. Now, every time we go through hard times, he'll always end that with, it's okay, we got this. We'll get through it, we got this. So when he said, I got the name. So the name of the nonprofit became We Got This.
Yeah.
And that's to offer a lot of resources and things like that. So after that day is when we start to incorporate the nonprofit. And he named it as We Got This. And there's a Charles Doc Williams Foundation. That's the legal part of that company. He named it after him. There's a lot of classes that he was teaching, and that was named after Darley Mercado Foundation. That's the victim. We want to honor him as well. So he did do different aspects of the nonprofit that he wanted to name after people that made a difference, that he wanted to be remembered for who they were, so they're not forgotten. That's why we wanted to wait until that is out there, so it doesn't seem like we're glorifying anything about prison, and that the victim's family know that their son matters, and he will live on in that, and it might help others. So, like I said, Kenyatta was involved in a lot. He was gone through IMU, and so we calculated that out of 40 years in total, approximately, he's been incarcerated to date, back and forth. About 20 of it, maybe a little bit more, has been in segregation.
Wow.
And, so that's that. I mean, it's been a long life story for him. He's lost a lot of people. He's been through, God, I don't know, he's been through a lot of that stuff. And most of it is punitive because he, like he said, I'm not going to give in. Rights are rights. I'm not asking more than you guys are billing for, just human rights. We are still human.
Yeah.
If you are billing for us to have cell and meals and all that, then you should provide it. We're not asking for a hotel. We're asking for the rights to programs, to this, to that, and we'll create them. We'll pay for it. Just like these clubs, we will pay for these clubs. We'll fundraise. Just let us do it.
Yeah.
So some will say it's entitlement. These guys should be locked away, throw away the key. But I don't think it's entitlement if they're willing to pay for it, fundraise for it, work for it. They want to earn it. They want to show that I am not the person I was 25 years ago.
Exactly.
None of us were.
But they're just asking for the opportunity to give back. It's a positive situation. It's to keep them busy in a positive way, as opposed to what they do when they're trying to keep busy and they're given nothing to do.
Exactly. And that's where he says Oregon saved him. Again, the diagnosis saved him. Oregon saved him in a different way. He saw purpose. These guys were filing clemency and commutation packages. They gave him a hard time because he wasn't. They all said, you should file for commutation. And he was saying, I can't. I'm not from the state. I'm just here. They didn't understand. They thought he just wanted to stay in prison.
Yeah.
But he didn't do it because of commutation. He knew that that means nothing legally. That doesn't go anywhere. I just want to do it. So a lot of people didn't understand why would he do it. He loved that kind of stuff. That mattered to him. He says, I took away from the community. I want to give back.
Exactly.
And it did connect him to a lot of people, a lot of politicians, a lot of resources, not for himself, but to maybe make a difference, to kind of keep going forward. And like I said, I kind of got taken in with Doc. I talked to Doc on the phone once. The guys were sneaky. They knew once I talked to him, I'm going to fall for this.
Yeah.
I'm going to fall. I'm going to feel it. And I was in. After that, I was in.
Yeah.
There's no go back. No way.
So what does your organization do now?
So the Charles Doc Williams is supposed to provide legal help. So people do send him cases. He can't go to court, obviously, but as somebody who does have a business and paralegal, he can advocate that. He can do civil cases. He can do all that. He files grievances for people. He teaches people how to do grievances in there or how to do different, I don't want to say just lawsuits because it sounds bad, but different litigations, what your rights are. Right now, he's got one person. He's supposed to be home, but they're just not releasing him. And this actually happened to Tion several times. His mom was there to pick him up from jail, and they're just not letting him go. So things like that, that's a common thing. I didn't realize how common that is, but he says that's just a lot of the times that's what guys are coming in for. Like, I'm still here. My release date was 2 weeks ago. They're just not opening the doors. And basically how to advocate for yourself. What are your rights? And sometimes people come in and say, I want this. Well, okay, but you're not entitled to that.
Right.
And lawyers will charge you and tell you you are, but, you know, not to knock lawyers. It's just jailhouse lawyers are amazing in that regard that they know stuff and they know what pertains to that facility sometimes because facility to facility matters. So, he will help anybody he can with the legal stuff. The mental health stuff is my part.
Okay.
I do love that. I don't love that people are struggling, but when there's loved ones that come in and this is the issues they're facing, I can tell them, okay, here's where you can reach out. You can talk to the ombudsman or these are organizations, things like that. Right now, we are involved in a juvenile bill that's on the legislature, and I know I got to make my testimony tomorrow, which I'm nervous for. Unfortunately, that bill doesn't help my husband. He's 4 months too old for that. I know, but it still matters. It helps a lot of people. I think 400 people exactly. But things like that. And a lot of people are struggling with the mental aspect of it, especially when you have somebody inside, whether it's your boyfriend, husband, son, brother. You don't know how to navigate it. And sometimes you need somebody that isn't biased that's going to tell you it's okay. It's going to be okay. They're going to be okay. And sometimes they might need to be moved. People that litigate for themselves are typically at risk for retaliation. There's been a lot of suicides in Connecticut recently, a lot of deaths in Connecticut recently. So sometimes you need to know when to advocate for your person, and sometimes you need to know when to step back. And I'm a mom, so I get this. Sometimes you got to let another mom know this is not the time, because your son might be retaliated more. Mm-hmm. And like I said, there's time to advocate. There's time to wait a little bit and see how things go. There's time to connect people to a lot of organizations that are out there, but we just don't know about them. Mm-hmm. Just things like that. And like I said, he does write a lot of classes. Will he be able to teach them there? I don't know. They keep saying yes, but it's not happening. Yeah. But he's helping.
Wow. I love how he's so passionate and finds purpose all the time, regardless of how bad his situation is right now.
Yeah, I always thought that when I talk about penitentiaries, maximum security is supposed to be quiet, people are reading or bored, and I always said he's the busiest prisoner I've ever met. He's never available here or there or whatever.
I love it.
I like routines. I actually told him that, like, we're those people that I'm going to tell him, I'm missing something. And we finally figured out what it was. I said, I need a routine because I have a work routine that I need to know. You can't just call me middle of the blue. I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
So he actually wrote it out. Okay, I'm working this time. This time he's learned to manage his bipolar. Since they moved him, he has not been on medication in Connecticut.
Oh, no.
So, because Dr. Gagne, the one he litigated against and won, now has 29 successful lawsuits. And by successful means he was found guilty of messing with people's medication. He is still the psychologist. He's still working there. So Kenan said, I'm not going to him for treatment. I don't know what he's going to give me, but I definitely don't trust him. I sued the guy. So he is managing his own bipolar by learning how to do it. So a lot of the times it's asking me, okay, am I going too fast? Am I spinning out a little bit? Because I can tell when he's talking faster that, you know what, you need to cool off, just close the door. He is single cell, so go in, close the door, and just have alone time, because it's really easy to snap in that moment, and nobody cares that you're not on medication. And he does not ever want to break that nonviolent streak. So there's things like that, and that's where he built that routine. He said, okay, between this time and this time, that's my time. Yeah. Now, he does have OCD, so he will sit there and rearrange his cell. He'll put his books in alphabetical order, or whatever it may be. That's his calm routine. So I don't bug him during that time, or I'll write him a message. I don't expect him to answer, because he said, I need my time too, and I understand that. I respect that. And there's days like we have that. We have no prison days where I don't want to hear anything about prison, because it gets overwhelming.
Yeah, it does.
So we do routines big time. Like, we're big on that. We have Fridays, for example, as a no prison day. We'll talk about us. We'll talk about the kids. We'll talk about the weather. We'll talk about shopping. We're not going to talk about prison because I'm overwhelmed. And
I like that.
We try to schedule things. It's different when I'm there and I can see him for visits and things like that. Now that I'm in Canada, we schedule video visits. He does have a family. His mom wants to see him as well. Like I said, he did have a tumultuous relationship, but when I came into his life, he knew my family passed away by then. He told me, I want you to have a family. Forget my issues. I want you and my daughter to have a family. And his family's been nothing but amazing to me, the kids. And I couldn't think of anybody better. I talked to his mom just early this morning. I talk to her almost daily. I love her. She's accepted me as her daughter. His sisters are amazing. And they got amazing fashion tips, too. Anyway.
So what's next for you guys?
Well, originally it was me moving there, and I was there for 6 months. But like I said, paperwork-wise, it didn't work out. Yeah. So I had to come back to Canada. And so we are refiling right now again, because there's a time, like when you put in your immigration paperwork, there's a time limit. It ran up. So we are refiling it, or we have refiled it now. And it's continuing to be my move there. I still go out to see him. I want to be there for spring, but financially I won't make it. Okay. So I'll be there for summer. Okay. We'll spend the summer there, come back here. And so our goal is by next year for me to be permanently moved there. And so we're putting everything we can into making that happen. Okay. He did file for a modification. Good. He was denied. Oh. I'm not going to go too much in that case. Yeah. Connecticut broadcaster hearings. People can get freedom of information, watch it. They didn't read his case. It wasn't even his case.
Yeah.
So he was denied for the stupidest reason, and I asked him, do you want to appeal it? And he said, I could. It takes 5 years for me to get into court, and in 5 years I can apply again. So what's the point?
Yeah.
But there is commutation that he is applying for. That's a different avenue. You're, instead of in front of the judge, you're in front of a board of pardons and paroles.
Okay.
So that is an avenue. I mean, if the bill passes, it doesn't help him, but it could, because he was 4 months away from being 25.
Yeah.
And he was in solitary confinement, which has proven to slow down your mental aging. Even you don't know how old you are in Northern in those conditions.
Right.
I don't know, but either way, what's next for us is the same thing as now. He's getting me more and more into politics, which I think I like more and more, even though there's so much that needs to be changed.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the extent of U.S. prison conditions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And once you know, you can't unknow. So we're still going to be on that journey, whether he hopefully gets his freedom one day, which we can all hope for. But I am prepared. I knew the fact that he's a lifer. I went into that knowing he is a lifer. So until anything else happens, it's still our family. And we still got this, basically.
Wow. I love it. I feel the same way. I think we connect on all those levels as well. I hope to see you in the US one day. I hope you keep us updated, and I hope that everything works out. I thank you for allowing me to take up so much of your time this morning. I just looked at the clock. I'm like, wow. Is there anything that you want to share with the world before we go?
We're trying to grow our nonprofit. I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel, which sucks because I'm not good at social media.
Yeah.
But
me neither. I hate social media.
I'm hoping that we can spread some awareness because there's this assumption about incarcerated people that just isn't correct.
Exactly.
And people need to know what the reality is. Yeah. They need to know what the prison really is. It's not what you think it is. The corruption in there, I don't think anybody knows that. And even the laws that have been changed are not necessarily followed. And the public doesn't know. They think these people are just whatever in there. They don't know what happens. They don't know where their tax money actually really goes.
Exactly.
And that they don't have to pay the tax money because the prisoners are not getting the stuff you're paying for. And I think that it's simply educating. It's not saying, oh, yeah, these guys are good people or bad people. It's just, you should know, and then you can make your informed decision from there.
Exactly.
I feel like I did. I met this person. I had an opinion, but I learned about it, and I feel like, okay, I think we all deserve to give the time and learn what something is before we assume or judge what it is.
I love that. I feel the exact same way. The exact same way. I think everybody deserves that opportunity. Not that it means that everyone should be free or everyone is not a monster or whatever. There are bad people in this world, but everyone deserves that opportunity to speak and share their story and before we judge. How would someone reach you on social media?
My YouTube channel, Svetlana's Corner. Like I said, I'm not creative. I named it after myself because I didn't know. That awesome. Probably would be the easiest way, and I do put all my links in the description box. For now, when I find better ways, I will do that. I have a Facebook page for our nonprofit. We got this, but I'm still working on how to make it more interesting because, like I said, social media is not my forte.
Yeah, me neither.
So probably my YouTube page is going to be the easiest because I'm on it more than anything else.
Okay.
And that's something, like I said, it's a work in progress. I'm learning.
Yeah, I get that. It's not easy by any means. I'm not a huge fan of social media, so it's been really hard. It takes a long time to develop that skill. So I know what you're saying. Anyways, thank you so much again for joining me. I appreciate your time.
Thanks.